Okay, so the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be announced sometime this fiscal year, which means we are going to see this thing at least talked about sometime before March 2025. But the big question still remains, what is this thing gonna have? What is this thing gonna look like, and how much is it gonna cost? We had our friend Rudy on the podcast last night. We had a big discussion about all this stuff. I'm gonna share that with you guys right now. As I said in the last video I did like this, we are gonna start sharing some of the podcast stuff on this channel for you guys to check out. If you haven't seen the podcast, we do it every Wednesday night live over on the YouTube channel for the podcast. If you miss it there live, you can catch it on any of the podcast platforms of your choice. Before we jump into it, I do want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, MobaPad. They make the M6 HD Joy-Cons. These are my favorite Joy-Cons for the Nintendo Switch. I have every pair of them. I got these on the Switch right now, these awesome cotton candy ones. They're my favorite. They have mouse click buttons. They fit tight on the Switch. They're really well made, and the best part is you can take the face plates off. You can get different ones. They have, what, 4 or 5 different colors now, and they just released the all black set, which I am gonna have a video on this channel very soon, as soon as those get here. But I'll have a link down below where you guys can check out everything that MobaPad has, and they have some deals. They've got things like the dock, the controller. You can get both of those together in a bundle for a very good price. You can get a set of these with a faceplate and a case for an awesome price. Again, the link is down below, and I wanna thank MobaPad again for sponsoring this video. Now on to the podcast clip.
So,
DLSS
on the Switch.
Let's go there.
Let's start off like this. The Switch 2 is coming out. We all know it. It's coming out really soon. What is it going to look like? What's the Switch 2 going to look like based off of this entire podcast episode we just went through? Other devices like the Steam Deck, the Legion Go, and the ROG Ally X. What can the Switch 2 actually look like in reality?
I mean, we've got these rumors we just went over. Backwards compatibility. Yeah. Gotta have it.
Yeah.
7-inch display, supposedly. 60-watt charger. A second cooling system, possibly in the dock. That is interesting. We did talk a lot about that. It's coming out this year. We're going to get there in a minute. Different cartridges they're using that are super fast, that aren't even on the market yet, which is crazy. That's the craziest part about that. Yeah. Samsung's putting something out, supposedly behind closed doors. There's a whole thing that happened there with them and Samsung. But the biggest thing that's been the biggest thing for a long time, people have been very excited about, is DLSS. That's what's going to make this thing really just the awesome thing that it could be if it really works the way that we all hope it does. And now I don't know everything about this. I know the general idea of this. This is what we got. So supposedly it says that it's going to have NVIDIA DLSS super resolution and ray reconstruction. So
Rudy, translate.
Please translate. Tell me what that means. What are those things?
So DLSS is probably one of the coolest things that has been coming out on the market. For those of you that are into AMD, that's kind of like FSR. But DLSS, what it does is it essentially takes an image and super enhances it. So, you know, if, for instance, let's look at the original Switch. It's 720p in terms of its resolution. Imagine that on a 4K screen. It's not really that pretty. But with DLSS, you can upscale that resolution and put it all the way up to 1080, 1440p, or even 4K, and in some instances, all the way up to 8K. It really just depends on the hardware that's there. With this, I could definitely see it going all the way up to 4K, which is super exciting for having that beautiful, you know, living room, sitting on the couch and playing games without, you know, sacrificing too much in terms of like price to performance ratio. It's super awesome, and it's ridiculously exciting. Now, when it comes to ray reconstruction, this is something that is, imagine kind of like having a checkerboarded ray tracing effect that you would get. This is something that I personally don't have too much experience with because I just put everything on ray tracing when I can. But do you guys know what ray tracing is?
It makes reflections in the game. I know it. I mean, it makes pretty reflections.
No, that's not it.
No, what does it do?
That's what everybody thinks. Everybody thinks that, it makes the reflections pretty.
Yeah.
What it does is that it's actually a calculation that happens on a pixel by pixel basis for the light that's coming in. So the reflections is a part of it because you have light that's coming in and it bounces off and everything that's there. So developers, what they would do before ray tracing is that they would actually paint the light in the games. So whenever you go into a game and there's a light source, like the coating is put there so that, you know, it'll go ahead and come off and it'll hit the character that's there. But that light doesn't naturally bounce off everywhere around you. So if you have light that's coming off from, let's say, for instance, from here on my face, you can see how it's coming on this side of my face. You see it?
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's not there, it's not there. If it's there, the light bounces off. Without ray tracing, this would be all black. With ray tracing, it's on my face. So it's actually a pixel by pixel calculation of how the light is coming in.
That's interesting.
Which makes things look
almost
much better.
It's almost like 2D lighting has been the case for a long time, and then now we have 3D lighting where like
that's nuts.
Like
that's
in
nuts.
layman's
Okay, I didn't
terms.
know it was that deep because that sounds that sounds like learning lighting from like what I learned to do. What I do is my job, like photography. Like that is it. It's like based off of like, you know, the source and relative to the subject and this and that and bouncing and controlling light. It's the exact same thing. That's absolutely nuts.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. And like the cool thing is that like when you actually have that in a game and it's running well, it makes the experience much more realistic. That's why games like Cyberpunk or like I mean, what's another, like Portal RTX or like Half-Life RTX, like those games that like push RTX, just it's such a crazy experience. Now, that's full on ray tracing. Ray reconstruction is kind of like a half measure to that, which could still provide a good enough experience, especially when you're talking about Nintendo games and, you know, what they're trying to put. I think this will be similar in terms of like an experience to kind of like the PS4 Pro to like a 4K. You know how like the PS4 Pro was like checkerboarded 4K, it wasn't true 4K.
Yeah.
This would be kind of like that, where it'd be kind of like, you know, a half measure to what could be really true ray tracing. It's super interesting and super exciting, man. Like, it gets me hype for like the next Nintendo Switch in terms of like what we could get, because if the Super Switch has all of that tech in there, it's gonna be awesome, man. Like it's gonna be so freaking good.
And as we already said early in the podcast, Drip, we got like there's gonna be more RAM. There's of course this next Switch is gonna have more RAM. It's gonna have a better chipset. It's gonna have more storage, faster storage, which we talked about, which is gonna be really awesome. Games are gonna load much faster, download and transfer speeds and all that good stuff. Bigger display. It's, you know, all that stuff the numbers we could guess and speculate all day long. That's not important though. But the ray tracing thing and the reconstruction and the DLSS, that's all really interesting stuff that Switch 2 could have. Let's talk about cost, because we didn't talk about that yet. What is it? What do you guys think a price point that is realistic, and what do you think Nintendo is going to do in actuality? Because I don't know, man. The OLED's already $350. It could be as high as 500, but don't you think that might be too much
for Nintendo? Dude, it's 400. It's got to be 400. It's got to be.
I agree. I think that it's going to be
400.
Like, 400 is kind of like the sweet spot. If it's 500, that's going to be like a little bit too much, man. And like that's the thing. So, you know, I look at the stuff that's here, and like this is, again, looking back at Nintendo and the fact that they want to go ahead and make a profit on everything, including their hardware. This is technically worse in terms of specs compared to the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
But that ray reconstruction that's happening, like that actually, you know, I just like looked it up just to be sure, because I wanted to make sure that I said what I said was correct. But it actually uses AI graphics in order to like break through all of that stuff. So it's going to help in terms of like the reconstruction of everything. And AMD has something that's similar that they use for like frame rates and whatnot, but I'll talk about that later on. With this, totally doable at 400. I definitely think that they will be able to not only be able to sell it at 400, but be able to profit at 400, which I think is their main point. Is they want to deliver something that's strong enough, but to where they'll be able to make money off of it.
Well, that's exciting to hear. I of course, we know Nintendo's going to want to profit off the hardware, so. My fear was 400 wasn't going to be enough to profit, but I trust you more than me. So I mean, if you're saying they can still profit for 400, then I'm all for it. Like, of course, I want less than that. I'd love free if I could take it. But 400 is a good price point to kind of stay within that realm of the casual gamer or just the younger younger kids can actually afford to get it. They can ask their parents, and they're not going to look at them with 15 eyes like, "Are you kidding me? You want an $800 ROG Ally X? Go get a job." You know,
that's the thing. Yeah, because even when you talk about like the PS5 or the Series X at like $500, the people buying that, like, they're not PC gamers, but they're a different level than Nintendo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The people, I mean, you know, people who play PS5 can play Switch. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the people who are like, I'm going to get a Switch. Oh, it's $500? Never mind. I'm not getting a Switch. I'm not doing that. That's crazy.
Right.
Like people, who go to a PS5. Oh yeah, it's PS5. Of course it's $500. It's a completely different thing. It's got to be 400. It's got to be.
Now, what do you
Even
guys
if you go 450? I think it's going to be like,
yeah, 450.
You're really getting scary there.
Release time, because there's some rumors out there right now that this thing could come sooner than we think. There's also some rumors out there that say it could be farther out than we think. There's a guy like Drip who's like, nah, man.
I know
my birthday. Nintendo's getting me my birthday present. It's happening on my birthday.
It's happening on my birthday. It is. Okay, now
when's your birthday?
Let's go with that. I'll go ahead and tell you. So I've been saying this for a while now. I honestly, here's what I think. I'm gonna go through this whole thing. I think next month, September, is gonna tell us everything we need to know. I think if we get a direct in September, if we do, we won't see this thing till after Christmas. And then my whole thing's ruined. But if we don't get a direct, I think that is a dead giveaway that we're going to see the announcement of this thing in October. We're going to see what it is. We're going to get the whole whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I think it's going to release on March 10th, Mario Day, my birthday, with a new 3D Mario. Because they didn't care about Mario Day that much, even when the Switch was released. But if you notice, every year, Mario Day, they do more, and they do more, and they do more, and they do more. Up to this year, where they finally put out the new Mario and the new system on Mario Day, March 10th, my birthday. And they send me one for free because it's my birthday and because they love me. And it's going to be a great day. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait.
Rudy, what do you think?
Well, as far as I know, I could be wrong. I don't work for Nintendo. My uncle doesn't work for Nintendo either. I think that's going to happen like April, maybe May. The fiscal year, it's not going to be this fiscal year. I don't think so. I think it's going to be April or May. I do agree with Drip that we're going to find something out this September. Like, there's always been a Nintendo Direct every single September since Nintendo Directs were like first
clockwork.
inception.
Yes.
Yeah, every single year. So for sure, we're going to get something next month. And we're probably going to learn something. We have to learn something. And if not, we're going to find something out before the end of the year. If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been years. The original Switch was first teased 4 months before it was released. Like, it was December.
It was October.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
And then, they showed it again in January, I think. And then the release was March. Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, there you go. So I think that something like that will happen this year, and then we'll be able to kind of like get a little bit more insight and knowledge in terms of what we're going to see. What about you?
I don't really. I am a leaker, as you all know. If you listen to this podcast, I'm a leaker. I leak stuff all the time. I mean, I'm the leaker guy. But I actually don't have anything to leak as far as the date. I have what I want. What I want is a picture that looks like Drips. Where we see something next month at this point, hopefully soon in September, and it's like, hey, it's a teaser, and then maybe like in October, it's like, all right, this is it, and then in March. Or maybe like in January, February, they're like, here's the date. And then in March, we see it, That's kind of what I want. I honest to God, Rudy, a lot of people know this on the show, but you don't. I was a Nintendo fan back in the day. Of like a lot of us had a Game Boy. But like I removed myself from Nintendo for a very long time until the pandemic when I got my Switch. So like I'm not quite up on the loop as far as like, making good predictions on stuff like this, like what could, what the release dates on the Switch 2. I just have what I want. And I like what Drip has to say. Yours doesn't make me that upset either. Some people are saying like this is a holiday 2025 thing. I think we all can agree that's a bonehead idea from Nintendo. From a business, like not just what I want and what the fans want, but from a business perspective, that is so damn long that there's no way they can wait to 2025, late 2025.
I mean, they're already throwing fans rations at this point just to like keep them alive, just keep them on the hook. Like here's a port. Here's a remake.
And the numbers are speaking for themselves.
They can't do it for a whole nother year, can they?
No, and the numbers are speaking for themselves as far as console sales. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they're going down finally. They really are going down in a big way. now, you know, and it took this long for it to happen, but it is finally happening. And they need to I think it's a good timing if they do it in September. Honestly, now would be better timing, but September might be too long even to just, you have to tell people something, give people something to look forward to, give your investors something to hold on to. Because yes, you did tell us a few months back that it's going to happen. You're going to hear some information about it in this fiscal year because they had to tell us, but they really have that's from a legal standpoint, but from like a business perspective, they have to tell people some information about this console and soon, because the business is tanking. Now, I'm not saying Nintendo's going to go bankrupt over this if waiting a couple extra months too long. That's not going to happen. But they're going to hurt their bottom dollar, and they're going to hurt the interest if they really wait too much longer to just give us a little nugget of information.
That's all it'll take, too.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the thing.
It'll go,
that's all it'll take to get people just so hyped.
Yeah. All these Nintendo YouTubers making their videos right now of how it's down. Nintendo YouTubers.
Just show anything. Just show the shape of it. The outside. Just give me an outline of what it looks like so I can make a fucking video on it, please. God bless.
Yeah.
Help me, Nintendo. Throw me a goddamn life jacket, will ya? Please.
Nintendo.